again?
It's called I Want a Job.
Oh, lovely. Here, Sid.
I want a job, I want a job, I want a good job, I want a job, I want a job that pays, I want a job, I want a job, I want a real job, one that satisfies my artistic needs. Hey, you like it?
It's lovely.
You like it, Sid?
Stupid cunt.
Well, good evening. It is December 8th, 2021, I think. And we're back here, the American Council for Truth and Journalism. We're kind of like a nightly newscast, but not really. Like, share, subscribe, all that stuff. So it's an interesting situation with the economy. We had Janet yelling, running around, talking about how it's all going to collapse on December 15th if we don't raise the debt ceiling. And Nancy Pelosi graced us with her presence today.
As you were probably aware, the legislation we passed provided a process under which we could lift the debt ceiling with a simple majority rather than 60 votes in the Senate. In doing so, we're protecting families and the U.S. and global economies, preventing a loss of millions of jobs and trillions of dollars of household wealth. Trillions. Drastic increases in interest. Do you have a car loan? Do you have a mortgage? Do you have credit card bills, student debt, any other type of borrowing? Your cost would go up if we do not lift the debt ceiling. And again, even a discussion of it in the past has served to downgrade our credit rating. We will not have that happen this time. And it has a massive drop, should this have happened, in the value of the dollar with global long-term consequences. This is as serious as it gets in terms of public policy, the people's interest, and the public interest. So, again, that has gone over to the Senate as soon as they go through the process of how to bring the bill to the floor, vote on it, come back to us, and we will be done in the time from middle December, which the Secretary of the Treasury has said, when the time and the money run out for lifting the debt ceiling.
Lou,
I feel like I'm a little frozen.
it was her that did it to you, wasn't it?
I think it was, but did you see how she said trillions like she was reading that for the first time?
Well, she certainly doesn't really understand what it means, and I liked how she started talking about car payments and all of the things that are going to affect the little people and the peasants. You know, yeah. She's such a benevolent ruler. It's pretty impressive.
How's her stock portfolio doing?
Well, it's funny you mentioned that because that kind of rolls right into one of the other issues we talked about, where everybody was talking about how the Ghislaine, we're going to deal with name pronunciation tonight, I guarantee it. But Ghislaine Maxwell and how her the account that tracks her stocks was taken down. So we don't really know how her portfolio is doing. Apparently, you can follow it on Gab, I believe. But I believe this is the one. Yeah, Nancy Tracker. The account was suspended by Twitter today. Big surprise.
You know, the Nancy Tracker and the Ghislaine Tracker, both of those were two of my favorites. I usually make sure I go to check those.
You're always frozen motherfucker.
I know. I'm trying to delete as we're speaking. Go ahead. Can you hear my voice though?
Yeah, but it's very unnerving. Dad.
Yeah.
Help us out.
Get out of here. No,
looks like you're on your own.
No, let's just let him flounder
and just kind of do the animatronic Lou.
Animatronic thing.
Yeah, we've lost him into the metaverse already.
If you can hear my voice, I was just going to try to stay as steady as possible.
Yeah, you know what? There's something about the algorithms of these streaming platforms, particularly of video streaming, where like it only sends the information for the things that change pixel per pixel. So if you sit really still and just talk, you will decrease bandwidth, and hence you will probably not chop up. Technical Talk brought to you by Thaddeus Preston. Thank you for your service. Coming back soon. Anyway,
one of these days. Well, it's kind of like some of this transitory inflation. While she's worried about the debt ceiling, and Janet Yellen's doing her business, talking about how we're going to fix the economy by going green. and decarbonizing. Which, for those of you who don't know what decarbonizing mean, it's killing everyone.
No, that's not exactly what it means, but that's the
what
end
it
result.
means.
That's the end result. But yeah,
We're trying to get to a colder planet. That I don't know.
Yes, I know.
There's only so many. There's only so many ways to make an omelet.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's funny how they say. So you sent that chart about the agricultural inflation.
Yeah.
I think as a function of what fertilizer prices and food prices.
Yeah.
And how like us versus the rest of the world. And like the rest of the world is getting just as fucked as us. And so we're asking this question about why is this so terrible? Why? Oh my God, what's going on? Oh man, it's hurting the poor nations of the world. Well, you didn't fucking think of that shit when you decided to shut down fucking global trade. I will say it again and again. These people are fucking dumb. It's madness.
Well, yeah, and to look at it, I mean, the producer price index was up 22% year over year. 22%. But don't worry, as they say, it's like a little hump. It's a little hump.
It's transitory, Sean.
Yeah.
It is transitory.
It's
basically
transitory.
it's transitioning to a higher level for which it will stay for the rest of your lives.
Yeah. I mean, that's one of those deals where really, let's just face it, spoken like a real
stupid cunt.
So, moving right along, I guess we should kind of we'll invite on. I mean, Vladimir is an old OG original gangster council member, and we are also lucky to be joined by his lovely wife, who's a lawyer, a producer, a filmmaker, and also a healer. So she's a very amazing woman. That's really, there's no other way to put it. And they're going to give us their perspective on what's going on in Ukraine from people who actually know something to help us stupid Americans out, which is always fun, and get their opinion on some of the goings on in the United States while we're at it. So let's go ahead and bring them on. Hey,
greetings.
So what are we thinking about this transitory inflation? Let's go ahead and get your take.
About the inflation?
Yeah.
What do you think about inflation?
It's really bad.
She said it.
Yeah, it's certainly not good, is it?
That's just the best. That's the best way to do it. All right. Good night, everybody. Thank you for coming tuning in. That's it.
Well, okay. So let's kind of break right into this. And why don't you all kind of give everybody in our audience a little bit of perspective of who you are and where you're from and why we're actually interested in what you two have to say about the situation in Ukraine right now. That's very
I'm originally, well, we're both from Soviet Union. We were born and raised in Soviet Union. I was raised in the Republic of Lithuania. And I was like 13 or 14 when Soviet Union collapsed, and I became a citizen of a different country, of a new world. Let's put it that way. And lucky or not, but Lithuania did not have enough resources and territorial, or territory for Russia to be interested in it. But with Ukraine, it's quite a bit different. Ukraine was the second biggest republic of Soviet Union, very industrial, very agricultural, very educated, extremely fertile land, a lot of smart people, and when Soviet Union collapsed, Ukraine ended up with a huge nuclear arsenal, which would have put it on the map as a major power if they did not go with the U.S. and NATO plan to give all those weapons away. For a treaty to keep territory of Ukraine whole and sovereign, which is now being violated. The treaty that Ukrainian territory would be under protection of NATO and United States was violated.
Yeah, I was born in Sambre, Lviv region, near the Poland, and I live in Vinnytsia, in Kharkov, where is now problems the same, and I really understand what is in the East Ukraine, West Ukrainian. My grandmom was be Russian, my granddad was be Ukrainian, and we doesn't have any problems in the territory with the people.
Yeah.
It's not about of conflict with Ukrainian people, because Ukrainian people speak Russian, speak Ukrainian. I speak 7 languages, and it's not about of this type of situation. Ukraine is so much freedom country. We have really, really independent country. We have really interesting country, really a lot resource, agricultural and intellectual. The most good IT people from Ukraine. We have really a lot patents and something interesting scientific people. And what happened is in 2014, the Russian come in Crimea and come to Donetsk. And now America and all countries who talk don't touch Ukrainian territory, don't help for us for that. And now Crimea in the Russian, and it was be one conflict. It's not be Ukrainian conflict. And the same situation in Donetsk, because it's professional soldiers who come in this place and do this. I was study in Kharkov. It's near Donetsk, and I really know this territory. It's not about TV. It's my friends who live with that. And we really know for this situation. And now a lot my family the same live in Kharkov. And this near for Kharkov, this Russian soldier and Russian technology troops a lot, and it's a little difficult. For Ukrainian people, we really scared for 14th. It was a big shock for us because we are really friendly with this country, and we never thinking it's possible happiness with us. A lot family together, a lot people together. It's really big connections with the people. For us, it was be really big shock. Now Ukrainian people don't have shock. We know we near for aggressor and Russian territory and all what do Russian was politician. It was totally aggressions. And now the situation, what do America, what do different country about to be careful this contract, what we have that. Because Ukraine was be really a lot nuclear weapons, but we do this for peaceful. And what about that? What this type of information for international politician way? We don't need do this. We need be careful about that, and territory doesn't have nothing happiness, or we need be peaceful and all country possible come and touch territory from sovereignty of Ukraine.
Yeah, I mean it's a situation that I see where you can look at it from a few different perspectives. I honestly don't know what the hell the United States is really doing involved in that. I don't understand honestly what NATO is doing involved in that. NATO was originally meant to stand as a bulwark against Soviet Russia, and they've essentially spent years and years since the collapse of the Soviet Empire kind of encroaching on those borders as the Soviet Union collapsed. That's kind of how it appears to me, even with the independence of Ukraine, Georgia, what we saw happen down there, and with the United States moving into Afghanistan, that was always kind of a sticking point with Putin as well. So it's super complicated. Go ahead, Lou.
I was going to say, no, but I was going to say, with Vlad talking about, the Soviet Union, it made me think of how I was curious how he thinks about how that was demonized, but the European Union seems to be a very similar structure. Do you think it's going to have a similar output, or yeah? Well, explain to dumb American what the difference between those two are.
Okay, I explain what is different in European Union. I was live in Spain, and I have Spanish residency, and Ukrainian SSR. It was the communism country. You doesn't have any property. All property it was government. You have only small every month would pay you government, and it's not possible nothing entrepreneurship. nothing. And it's not about of rights. It's really so much difficult, and communism, you doesn't have when you come to shop, you doesn't have nothing. You have in the much more expensive, like поднялись цены на 20%. А там вообще не было никаких продуктов. You doesn't have nothing product if you come to the shop. Its stylish life would be so much different. And European Union, it's an independent country who have the same money, like euro, but he have the same different rights. He have human rights, the first basic about the all in the world, and it's a entrepreneurship life. All have possible you have your property, you have your familiar property, you have business, it's possible build structure. It's a monarchy sometimes, like Spain. It doesn't have that.
But wouldn't it, if, with these medical, I don't know, I don't want to get too far into it, but, with all the new laws, kind of the mandates passing, sweeping through in a European Union style, as opposed to which overrides a lot of the, their own constitutions, and they're seeing it now with these medical things like Austria, Germany, like they're all having to fall in line with these contracts that the European Union signed. Isn't it the same thing that we were concerned about with the Soviet Union?
Not.
Okay. Well, let's just move on then.
No, it's a different beast, right? I mean, it's a kind of a slower tyranny than.
Yeah, and Ukraine, we're not in the European Union. We are a different country. We're independent for European.
Well,
we're really big.
Did you guys want to become part of the European Union, though?
We're planning. We have it's possible for my documents come without visa in Europe. It's different than Russia. But we planning, but we doesn't have. We are really big territory, so much. And we cheaper. We have really cheaper than different. If we come to European Union, it's really change economic situation. That's why now we really like gold with Russia, European Union, and we so much big and so much independent, and better for international politicians cut Ukraine with that. And it's give much more better for Europe eating us, and the same for Russian. That's why now we need really a lot be intelligent, be so like independent country.
Well, I know. I mean, when it comes to American politicians, intelligence seems to be in pretty short supply these days. I've got a few clips. Really, we could start with Ukrainian President Zelensky and what he has to say recently about the situation. And kind of get your feedback on that.
How bad did he butcher that?
Перемога України в тому, що ми завжди Сполучені Штати підтримували Україну, наш суверенітет, нашу незалежність. У нас була двопартійна підтримка. Але найголовніше те, що ми зараз бачимо, що є особиста, реальна реакція і особиста роль президента Байдена в регулюванні цього конфлікту, в регулюванні війни на сході нашої держави. Мені здається, що це найголовніше.
So what is the sense of President Biden from your friends and family over there? I mean, we kind of in this country have come to the conclusion that he's a big babbling idiot.
For Biden?
Yeah.
My family doesn't think about the Biden.
So is it one of those things where Zelensky is basically kowtowing to Biden because they want American support as far as armament? Is that really what's going on there? And how much of that is tied? Obviously, the Biden family had ties to Burisma that are very corrupt, and there was a lot of funny business going on between Biden and the Ukrainian government that hasn't been sorted out. Do you think how much of that is involved in this decision-making process?
Ukraine, one of the most huge corrupt country. It's not about something new about of talking with that. It's really real for us. We have lived like that. And when you do the business, you know this, and you do game like that. But I think we have much more maybe open for this. America the same, so much corrupt country, and Europe the same. All countries have corrupt. But some have don't so much speak for this, and some people have really talk for that. It's about the cultural question.
This has been my experience having family who's been from another country, Nigeria, where it's kind of like you Americans think you're not corrupt. Your corruption is just implicit. We see it here explicit.
Yes.
And it's
I mean, I'd like to
widening.
point out that we here on the council, I don't think we have any problem with recognizing just how corrupt this U.S. government is.
And I prefer
what is really different, like Ukraine, America. I'm really fresh. I only 1 year here. That's why I talk really true. And I'm a lawyer. I analyze really what happens. You have really good marketing about the USA. USA, it's open market, do all business, and you have like American dream. It's not true. It's really not true. You have really closed market. In Ukraine, you do business really much more freedom. We don't have, because country young, only 25 years, and we have future market.
I know.
Yes.
Yeah, this is true. If you go to the other parts of the world where we think are who are absolutely corrupt, I have seen in places like Nigeria where cats will just like build a building.
Yeah.
Like no permit, no nothing. It's just like slanging equipment, slanging sodas, selling DVDs on the side of the road. And it's just like here, it's just like you got to have a license.
It's more.
You got to have a permit. You got to have a business license. You got to make sure you pay your taxes. Make sure you have your inspections done. And before you know it, you know that's why everybody sells online. That's why people in the hood like slang not just dope, but they slang everything.
Yeah,
because it's just so hard to start a business. That's good to see.
You want some lumber?
Yeah, exactly. Particularly lumber today. I just spent a small fortune on lumber today too, and so we tend to not have that perspective here because we think, oh, we're the land of the free, home of the brave, entrepreneurs. It's like, well, have you started a business here? Right? Have you tried? Even if you try a business where you just kind of sit on your ass in front of a big ass screen, which I've tried to do many times, there's still paperwork.
I started a business without any permits and licenses, and I got in big time trouble. So I would say,
yeah, exactly.
It's definitely true.
Well, speaking of failing businesses, I might as well just take this opportunity to say that if you'd like to support us, we got sweatshirts, we got cups, we got Flickwicks. You can go to the links in our description. There's plenty of ways you can help us out as we crater right off the cliff.
And what about
get
business?
yourself at that? Yeah. Get a Glowie box.
Yeah, in Europe it's the same. Really, all centimeters have in their control business. If you have look some cafeteria in Europe, like in Spain, it's cafeteria like 100 years, and it's nothing changed. 100 years, like 3 family together. Be careful, this country. What is different in Ukraine? It's a good if business have in the work like 3-5 years.
Yeah.
It's just astonishing.
Wow, crazy. So
yeah, I know.
Light of the whole situation. I guess the question I would have to ask is, to become part of NATO, to be under the protection of NATO, you had to give up the nukes.
Yeah.
Are you starting to to learn that was maybe a bad idea?
Is that an analogy to the guns thing?
They had to give up the nukes for the guarantee that their territorial sovereignty will be upheld by NATO and the United States.
Was that a bad idea?
They would be the protectors for giving up the nuclear weapons. They're like, why do we need them? We can protect you anyway.
Yeah.
Again,
and that's a bunch of.
Do you feel that was wise?
It's just like the gun thing now, where they're just like, yeah, just give us our guns. Everything will be a lot safer.
Yeah.
Never give up your like this. Take it from North Korea. Never give up your nuclear weapons. Sorry, I hate to be that guy. Look, we don't fuck with people who have nuclear weapons. Real talk.
But if you have gun, it's possible to organize peace.
Right.
Yeah.
Gun is.
Now Ukrainian people doesn't believe about this war. If you ask real people and you talk, we in the family doesn't talk about this war. We doesn't believe about this situation. It's something. It's a game. It's a big international game, and with this big international game, a lot sell. Очень много оружия продается.
That makes no sense. Only his is being muted.
Vladimir's sound cut out there.
Oh,
if you could repeat yourself.
can you still hear me? So I was listening to
Ukraine TV.
Ukrainian TV, and they mentioned interesting take on why Putin is doing this, why he's about to start a war, and what's the goal of it. And what they were saying is that he's seeing himself as one of the
Russian Caesar.
one of the great Russian czars or Russian Soviet leaders, who would expand the empire.
Like monarchy, like Russian monarch.
Like Russian monarchy, yes. So he wants to take back the territory that was always under Russian Empire rule. It was not Russia itself, but it was always a part of Russian Empire. So he wants to bring as much, territory as possible, especially if that territory happens to be, strategically placed, by the Black Sea, which is, the major location for Russia, to protect itself from NATO. So you can see why he's doing that. But of course, big ego is part of it.
Well, and I think that's something that is important that people need to understand, that when you talk about Crimea, which Russia is in now control of right here, that commands the entire Black Sea. The other interesting thing about the region, when you speak about motives for having a war, quite frankly, is that there's so much food that gets produced in Ukraine. As you've said, it's incredibly fertile. There's an amazing amount of food there. And what we've seen from the globalists, the people who run the United Nations and NATO, is that they really are seeking right now to control the entire global food supply. So I think there's two ways of looking at it for sure, where everyone has their motivations involved in this, whether you're talking about the West. And it seems to me as though Ukraine, in their search for independence or their desire for independence, they're just getting squeezed by the major world superpowers. And it's like you say, it's a big game being played out on a global scale. As far as Putin's motivations, this was what he had to say.
Это вопрос провокационный. Россия проводит миролюбивую внешнюю политику, но она вправе обеспечивать свою безопасность, как я уже сказал, в среднесрочной и более отдаленной перспективе. И мы это обсуждаем с нашими партнерами, со всеми нашими партнерами, включая и вчерашнего моего собеседника, президента Соединенных Штатов Америки, господина Байдена. Нас не может не беспокоить перспектива возможного принятия Украины в НАТО, потому что за этим, безусловно, последует размещение там соответствующих военных контингентов, баз и угрожающего.
Okay, well, I mean, that's generally, I understand the rationale there, but, it's an escalation, right? And so I understand the reason why, and yes, it would probably behoove the Ukrainians not to join NATO. But if they're massing 170,000 troops near the Donetsk region on that border, and if the United States has a treaty obligation to at least try to prevent that from happening, I don't think we will. I don't know. This seems to me a little bit of a stalemate.
Who's worse from the outside looking in, or maybe from Ukraine? Who's worse though, the Soviet or something that's led by the United States? Like, I would say at this point, the Soviets have pretty much proven to be almost better and ethnically, more in tune. Like why would the United States be something that y'all would want to follow?
Well, I was just thinking about this, kind of along the lines of what you're saying. The reason. It is believed that the reason for taking over Crimea by Russia was the fact that Americans were about to build major military bases in Crimea. In fact, you could track that they were placing ads in the papers for contractors, to build this infrastructure, and Russia just made the first chess move and captured that territory to be in control, strategic location, right, which is the Black Sea itself. But the question is, Ukrainians did need the money from WMF, right? So they were dependent on the money from WMF because of the,
which is similar to
the realities of economy, right?
Right. And it's similar to the IMF and all these other global entities that lend money to countries with strings attached.
Right, exactly. And with strings attached, that also includes, the pesticides that they have to use for their agriculture.
Without agriculture, we the same have a lot of
Switch the microphone. We can barely hear you somehow.
Can you hear us now?
It's like we can hear one.
Picks one of you.
Yeah, exactly.
If you come to like past history, you remember for USA was be Cuba.
Yeah.
And USA brings something special.
Goods.
Yeah, in the Cuba. And it's what really don't want Russia come with Ukraine. We now the same. If you are like look in this, we have like Cuba for Russia.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense right there.
American way.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah, and I know in the Ukraine have really huge history. The first we have Kievskaya Rus. It was huge, big country.
It was called Kiev's Russia.
And it's as a basical. The Moscow doesn't have in history. It's like 11th века.
Moscow you can trace back to 11th century.
No, 11th century it was Kievskaya Rus.
Oh, Kiev's Russia and
we
Kiev.
Have really big politician way, but and it's a blockation for grow up Ukraine like a huge intelligent country. And this time having the Moscow much more goal. And now Putin have changed all this history in the children book. And now totally changed history. He doesn't talk like Ukraine was be like Kievskaya Rus and all. Now we are look not only inform one. We have really look what is changed totally history about all that. It's what looking in my time. I was 41. In this time, history have really totally changing. When you are trying to understand history.
Yeah.
But I was talking to Sean today in regards to how this whole pandemic, scamdemic, obviously.
Do it.
I'm working on it. Hold on. I got it for you. It's a
scamdemic.
How it opened a lot of people's eyes about whether or not their country's leaders are independent of this global, world management, and you can see that pretty much every country with their leaders are just parroting what United States and major Western powers are saying.
Yeah, it's the World
There's
Health
no division, so to say. There's no polarities left in this world.
Well, and that's what I was going to say, is that it does seem as though there is a greater construct in mind where when you talk about the reason to have a war or to threaten war is really so that they can have a controlled collapse of the economy. So that when they crash everything and they destroy the entire Western world, then they can kind of remake it in their image according to the first industrial revolution, that Klaus Schwab wants. So, that's where we're at. When we talk about the, American leadership, I guess we can go ahead and get into some things that they said. Biden, surprisingly to me, wasn't nearly as foolish sounding as usual.
If in fact he invades Ukraine, there will be severe consequences. Economic consequences like none he's ever seen or ever have been seen in terms of being imposed. He knows his immediate response was he understood that, and I indicated I knew he would respond, but beyond that, if in fact we would probably also be required to reinforce our presence in NATO countries to reassure particularly those in the Eastern Front. In addition to that, I made it clear that we would provide the defensive capability to the Ukrainians as well.
And he was, and when I say he wasn't bumbling or sounding as foolish, now that's not to say that a certain amount of saber rattling right now isn't foolish, because I think it is. I've always been more of a fan of the Teddy Roosevelt style of speak softly and carry a big stick instead of this come with bravado and not be able to back it up. You know, but he was more coherent there than usual.
Yeah, typically he would have absolutely embarrassed us and stuff like that. But everyone in the uniparty that is DC is talking about, like, you got like senators talking about tactical nuclear strikes. You got it's foolish. It's foolish. All you have to do is just basically say, hey man, we don't want to do this, and deploy lots of troops if that's what you want to do. I don't really think that's going to solve anything, because I think Putin's going to do what Putin's going to do.
Don't you find it ironic how the left absolutely hated everything about Trump? And that is not to say that, you know, he's the greatest guy ever, but then they vote for somebody like Biden.
Sure they did. Yeah, I think we were discussing that a little bit, Vladimir, when we talked about the elections in Crimea as well, and maybe how legitimate they were. So I think a lot of people around the globe have kind of come to terms with the fact that elections aren't legitimate.
Or no, Sean.
Around the world,
elections have consequences.
Sure they do.
Not for the politicians that are known criminals.
I would divert that back to Chairman Mao and the fact that all political power proceeds from the barrel of a gun.
Well, hell, I mean, just like didn't Elon last night basically, you know, embodied Murray Rothbard anatomy of the state and called the government a giant corporation with a monopoly on violence?
Well, and this monopoly on violence, and the problem is that when we talk about knuckleheads, and like I say, Biden wasn't speaking quite as knuckleheaded as usual. Instead, that job fell to a Republican who, from now on, I'm going to call the Wicker Man. Roger Wicker, he's Republican from Mississippi. He's a senator, and he's on the Armed Services Committee. And this is the crap that he had to say right now.
Military action could mean that we stand off with our ships in the Black Sea, and we rain destruction on Russian military capability. It could mean that. It could mean that we participate, and I would not rule that out. I would not rule out American troops on the ground. We don't rule out first use nuclear action.
Stupid cunt.
I mean, what do you say when you've got some idiot running around talking about first use nuclear options? Does this fucking moron not understand that Russia possesses the Poseidon warhead, that they're probably parked right off the coast of the United States? And if you try to nuke Russia, they're just going to go, oh, time to have a fucking radioactive tsunami in New York. How you like it now, you idiots? Sorry, I got upset there.
Yeah, tell us more about it, though.
Yeah, well.
Yeah, this is the kind of nonsense, like I said, that kind of gets people in trouble. Like, look, the world is a ghetto, and we all about these streets. But you better be willing to back it up. But I mean, you don't want bloodshed unless you have to, right? I don't know. To me, this seems like it's just unnecessary. The question I would have is, what has provoked this latest attempt? Is it the massing of the troops on the border? Is it the fact that Ukraine has basically said that it wants in NATO? Is it the fact that even the NATO guarantee exists?
The collapse of the American dollar, the petrodollar.
I think.
And I'm proud to be an American.
I honestly think it is the fact that they just see weakness.
It's the
world sees weakness, and the petrodollar is one of many symptoms as to why we're weak. And anyone who looks at this administration and the fact that we are training our troops about critical race theory. And all this other nonsense. If I were China, it's like this. It's like this. Let's take this back to a ghetto analogy. If I see a bunch of weak ass punks around the stash house, Omar's coming. That's all I got to say about that.
It's one of those deals where, again, we talk about this weakness, and look, for all the criticisms of Putin, and I know there are many, he is by no means what I would call a good man. But again, these American politicians, let's just
stop beating around the.
Yesterday, President Biden continued to show American leadership to the world on his call to Russian President Putin. President Biden was clear, direct, and candid, and making sure there was an understanding that should there be any actions taken by Putin in Ukraine, that there would be tough consequences if he violates Ukraine's territorial integrity. These consequences would include strong economic measures, sending military support to Ukraine, and bolstering military support for our NATO allies in the region, including the Baltics, Poland, and Romania. Congress supports the president's strong leadership and the NDAA bill, which we passed in the House last night in a very strong bipartisan vote. We secured $300 million in security assistance for the Ukraine.
Stupid cunt.
And yet again, that's what we're left with. It's funny when she speaks, she's probably just so drunk that's the reason why she can't speak. Look, English is not English.
Ukraine and Romania, it's really totally different countries.
English is not your first language, and you speak it far better than Nancy Pelosi.
And you're much more coherent, because I don't know what the hell she was talking about. We passed a bunch of bills, spent a bunch of money, and we're proud that our president talked shit.
You know, you asked me about the Ukrainian people, what Ukrainian people are thinking about the American.
Mm-hmm.
I remember my feeling in 2014 was we are really scared. We are really scared because I look tanks in my street. Mm-hmm. And my father told, if something happens, you need to be alone without car and go, because we have really a lot real soldiers. And I remember one of my friends invite me in America, and all in Ukraine newspaper talk, American was we want Ukraine for freedom, we have together with American. When I come to New York and I read newspaper in New York, it would be totally different. A lot of information, because the Russian informed war come to America. And a lot of newspapers talk about the different situation about the Ukrainian. Like a lot of people doesn't understand what happened is. It's stupid Ukrainian with this type of Maidan. It's not about of intelligence and something like that. That's why informations for Ukraine, totally in Ukraine and international, it's a war. It's informed war with a Russian agent who gives this information, who talk with newspaper, what is really pay for that. And the same here, people doesn't understand what is news okay, what is news not okay.
Yep.
And it's a problems. It's about my festival, what we talk, ecology thinking. You need thinking what you eating with your newspaper and who talk that.
It's not what happens, it's what newspapers or TV channels say what happens, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's what creates the illusion.
Yeah, and that's where we get into the conspiracy shit, where it's like, oh, well, you know, how many companies, and it's pretty much BlackRock and Vanguard that pretty much own all of the companies. So you have one board of like 500 people that get to control almost all of the information around the world.
We are a small country, but we're not so much small country.
Yeah,
45 million people.
It's really big country for Europe.
Yeah.
And we are really a lot resource country, what is really interesting for this. But we have friends, this type of Russian, really huge territory. Yeah. That's why this partnership with America give for us this feeling better, of course, but need to do something. With Europe now, the situation, because the gas Russia gives, and the gas really important for Europe. That's why Europe closed
Nord Stream 2 pipeline and all that.
That's why Europe closed his about the talking with that, and all do what Putin talk. Yeah.
Russia controls natural gas
Shift the mic.
Shift the mic.
Europe is tied as well as.
You have to yell at us.
Shift the mic.
Yeah, what I said is, Europe is, is not.
Need gas with Russia. That's why
need natural gas. Yep.
Yeah.
That's why I don't so much talk about of problems with Ukraine.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of things like that you see around the world. I mean, our media doesn't, and our Hollywood and our cultural institutions don't talk a lot of shit about China.
Yeah.
Right.
Because they know where their bread is buttered. They want that 1.4 billion person market and that, middle class that's the size of North America.
Yep.
So they're gonna sit there and be like, well, what happened to that tennis star? We don't know. But can we release the next Avengers movie over there? I mean, that's what they. It's the same thing. I mean, Xi Jinping and Vladimir Putin play long games. The reason why Vladimir Putin can drive the narrative. I used the N-word. Sorry.
Oh yeah.
The reason why he can drive the narrative is because yes, he built the infrastructure, particularly natural gas and energy infrastructure. Europe is going green. The Russian Federation was like, "Fuck that. We're going to still drill." And now that they can't meet their green obligations because of the Paris Accords, they're at the mercy of Vladimir Putin and Gazprom and whoever else runs that Nord Stream 2 pipeline. And yeah, if you talk a lot of shit about it, you might say, "Hey, we're having production issues. We can't get enough something. Our bad."
Yeah. You just said Nord Stream again.
He said the N-word.
We'll go ahead and throw that one into the list of things you can't say.
Yeah, we need to remember history. We need to remember what Hitler do. He's first the same. Be careful about the German people. When we are start eating different countries.
Was taking care of.
Be careful about the German people. It's the same. Their structure from history from one. Because when we will study history, you really look and understand what happens now. It's possible to prognose. It's possible to visions if you understand in the past. But now new technology. We have internet online.
For now
it's I think we have wait about the new for cyber strategy. And it's now what people want. People want eating this type of politician way, kill different children without why, without what. Why we need died about of this stupid way. Why people need die? Why guys need died? In Ukraine, have really a lot guys died.
Especially, you just brought up a really good point, especially during this time of cooperation and all these resources. Why can't we just reevaluate what the world's resources is? Is this what they're going to do anyways? Like, why are they making young men die over something that they already have planned? It's like they already have the resources allocated. It is exactly nonsense.
Well, and yes. I think that's what it is. I mean, without getting into some of my more dark theories about why.
Oh yeah,
we need because they need a cold planet.
Yeah, when I come to USA, you doesn't have war in your territory. You doesn't have that. You don't.
You didn't have war for how many years?
You have only your soldier come to different country, and in this situation, you have give the budget for buy this покупать оружие, these weapons, yeah. But your children don't have in the scare here in territory America. Yeah. All happiness with different country, but different country like Africa, like Ukraine, this type of bad. When he partnership with America, children died. Why?
I think that is that's the real wisdom here that Americans should start to ask themselves if they haven't. We have a long history in this empire since we became an empire after the end of World War II of mucking about all over the world and making things worse.
Is there a chance we've just become the military arm of the old British Empire, though?
Yeah, we don't have to drag that out. No, that's too rabbit holey. But I mean, I get your point.
Go listen.
I get. Yeah, I know, Lou. I get you.
He's about to get
don't make me get fresh up in this bitch.
Are you not entertained?
Oh, speaking of that, speaking of military arm of British Empire, Sean, you want to show that picture I sent you?
I'll never bring it up in time.
So anyway,
But one thing, look, we've been super serious. We need to get down to the nitty gritty. As an old council member, and we've spoken about Radio Yerevan jokes plenty. And there was this time when you and I were in Armenia, Vladimir, and you were taking a leak. And for whatever reason, I felt like that was the appropriate picture to put with this. But can you translate this? Because I can't remember what I said, and I figured the audience might appreciate the joke.
So Armenian Council for Truth in Journalism received a question: is it true that Russia has a freedom of speech like USA? And the Armenian Council responded, yes, in principle. In USA, you can stand before the White House and scream as loud as you can that Trump sucks, and you will not be punished. And you can do the same thing on the Red Square in Moscow. You can stand in the center of Red Square and scream the same thing. Trump sucks, and you will not be punished.
And that is my understanding of generally Eastern European humor. Thank you guys for coming on. I appreciate it.
No, that was Ronald Reagan's one of his favorite jokes.
Oh, really?
Yep. But it was about him. The joke was about that in Soviet, in the United States, you can go to the White House and say, Reagan sucks, and you will not be punished, because there's a freedom of speech. And you can go to Russia and Soviet Union, to Moscow, and you can say the same thing, and it will not be punished.
Well, it's kind of like the opposite of that now, where, well, I don't know. I think it's just gotten to the point where you can't say Putin sucks in Red Square, and you can't say Putin sucks, or you can't say Biden sucks. I don't know. They all suck. But, we had this little...
DCP sucks anywhere.
Oh, it all sucks, because really, in the end of the day, when it comes
and
to
I'm proud to be an American.
So we had this little Johnny Rotten theme running through this whole thing. And as we kind of get away from a very serious subject, I wanted to add some further laughs to it with some final advice from Johnny Rotten. Good night, everybody.
When I was young, toothbrushes in our house were only used to clean your boots. The end result of that was that by 20s, the teeth in my head were so rotten that they'd gone green, and so I got the nickname Johnny Rotten. I liked the nickname Johnny fucking Rotten, because he's dirty, he is, he's got green teeth. I actually did, it was a mould that grew in there, and I thought it was somehow attractive and a positive feature. No, that led to serious health issues. Everything was painful. Eye aches, headaches, blood poisoning, bone rot, which required filling with America's best cement. Just so many teeth had to go. I've only got one real tooth left in my head. Genuinely speaking, I'd like to think that I don't have to thank my teeth for nothing. It took nearly a year and a half of constant dental surgery. I should have braved it out way earlier. I noticed that I could wake up in the morning without feeling completely, terribly poisoned. The teeth were doing that to me. And it's a horrible thing to have to admit to, but, take care of yourself. Or else you'll end up like me, rich and famous.